They both ruled Europe 400,000 years ago, but today, only one can be king. On the left we have the technologically advanced, large brain, taller and more widely adaptable Cro-Magnon. On the right, we have the specialized hunters with the strength of 10 men, adapted to survive the cold without breaking a single sweat. Who will win? Who survived the longest, and how did these two ancient humans set the course for who we are today? Before going into what could be the most fascinating matchup in all of human history, we first have to look at who Cro-Magnon and Neanderthals actually were. And to do this, we have to rewind the clock to 400,000 years ago, to a time when two separate hominins claimed Europe for their own. Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons represent two distinct human species that coexisted in Europe during what we call the Ice Age. Neanderthals, aka Homo neanderthalensis, were discovered in 1856 in the Neanderthal Valley in Germany. The Cro-Magnons, on the other hand, are an early modern human group, aka early Homo sapiens, and were first identified in 1868 at a site in France. So, point to Neanderthals for being discovered first, but let's move on. Both groups lived in harsh environments, almost unrecognizable from what we call Europe today, and like many of the hominids before and after them, they adapted impressively. Anatomically, the Neanderthals were shorter and stockier, with robust bones and a large brow ridge, adapted for cold climates. Their brains were slightly larger than Cro-Magnons, but their skulls had a lower, elongated shape. The Neanderthals were skilled hunters and used stone tools, although their technology was less sophisticated. They likely lived in small groups and relied on close-range hunting, which most probably led to frequent injuries. Now, the Cro-Magnons, on the other hand, were anatomically modern humans. That simply means they were taller and leaner with more advanced tools, art, and even social structures. Now, this was a game changer because their anatomy allowed for greater endurance and mobility, which helped them adapt to various environments. The Cro-Magnons were a very fascinating group of homonyms, as they were even the ones who created the famous cave paintings and various complex tools, demonstrating higher cognitive abilities. So essentially, the two groups were your classic brain versus brawn, and while Neanderthals had strength, Cro-Magnons had innovation and adaptability, which ultimately led to something we will explain more in detail later. When it comes to sheer physicality, Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons were like two different models of human evolution, one built for raw strength and the other for speed and endurance. To make it easier, you can imagine Neanderthals as the heavyweight champions of the Ice Age world, while Cro-Magnons were more like marathon runners or Olympic decathletes, built for versatility and longevity. So essentially, shorter Arnold Schwarzenegger versus Usain Bolt. The Cro-Magnons were the Toyota Land Cruiser of early humans, tall, lean, and built for endurance. Their longer legs allowed them to cover vast distances while hunting, which was essential since they were more likely to pursue animals over open plains. Standing around 5'10" or 177 centimeters, Cro-Magnons were taller than Neanderthals and had longer limbs, giving them more agility. This gave them a speed advantage, not only in hunting, but also in their daily lives, and it's all thanks to their anatomy, because their bodies were designed for efficient energy use, much like how marathon runners today conserve energy over long races. This endurance-based strength was more about survival through adaptation than pure power. As such, the Cro-Magnons were the original multitaskers. They developed tools like the atlatl, which, by the way, was a spear thrower, which allowed them to hunt from a safe distance, minimizing injury risks. Essentially, the Cro-Magnons were the sharpshooters, basically the early equivalent of snipers, taking down prey without getting too close to the danger. In every sense of the word, Neanderthals, on the other hand, were practically the bulldozers of human evolution. Their stocky, muscular bodies were a direct adaptation to the brutal, cold environments they lived in. At around 5'5" or 168 centimeters tall on average, they were definitely shorter than Cro-Magnons, but that wasn't a disadvantage because they were packed with muscle. Their wide chests and thick bones, which were denser than those of modern humans, gave them the strength to withstand the harshest conditions. Studies even show that Neanderthals had incredibly thick femurs, which suggest they were built to carry heavy loads. Just think of them as the Ice Age version of professional weightlifters, able to carry the massive carcasses of mammoths or large deer back to their caves. But it wasn't just muscle, because every part of our anatomy evolved for strength. For example, the Neanderthal arms were stronger than we could have ever imagined. Yes, even stronger than yours. We know this because of the evidence of large muscle attachment sites on their bones. This suggests that Neanderthals relied heavily on their hands for tasks like tool making, hunting, and possibly combat. Studies have even indicated that their forearm muscles were particularly well developed, giving them exceptional strength when gripping objects or handling tools. From a genetic standpoint, Neanderthals had higher muscle mass than Cro-Magnons. Their hands were big and powerful, perfect for close-range hunting and using heavy stone tools. They weren't chasing prey over long distances like Cro-Magnons. They were getting in close and personal, thrusting spears into animals, relying on brute force to make the kill. Basically, they were the action heroes of the Pleistocene, using their strength to tackle wild animals head-on. But this strength came at a cost, because their rugged lifestyle and hunting strategies led to frequent injuries, and their dense bones showed plenty of signs of trauma, like broken ribs and healed fractures, similar to injuries seen in rodeo bull riders today. So while Neanderthals might have been able to lift heavier objects, Cro-Magnons could run further and faster, making them the ultimate long-distance hunters. In terms of life advantages, Neanderthals' physical strength allowed them to survive in harsh conditions where food sources were limited and brutal winters were the norm. Their powerful bodies helped them tackle big games that provided essential calories to keep them alive. However, the Cro-Magnons in the end had the upper hand in versatility. Their leaner, more adaptable bodies allowed them to migrate and adjust to warmer areas, giving them access to more diverse food sources and reducing the likelihood of injury through smarter hunting strategies. In a modern comparison, it's like pitting a bodybuilder against an endurance athlete. Neanderthals could lift more and take more hits. But Cro-Magnons could run circles around them, avoiding confrontation while lasting longer in the wild. But to know which was the best hunting strategy, you have to stick around. For now, let's find out who's smarter. Now, in a hypothetical battle of wits between Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons, the difference between the two species becomes a fascinating topic. On a surface level, both species had large brains, but their cognitive strengths were molded by different evolutionary pressures. Thankfully, modern science can now give us clues to how they might have thought, problem-solved, and interacted with their world. See, regardless of how the media portrays them, Neanderthals had brains that were slightly larger on average than those of Cro-Magnons. But you have to understand that brain size alone doesn't equate to cognitive superiority. In fact, the structure and organization of their brains quite literally reveals the important differences. See, Neanderthals had more developed occipital lobes, the region of the brain responsible for vision and spatial processing. This suggests that their brains were highly adapted for visual tasks and spatial awareness, skills that were crucial for survival in the environments they lived in. An environment that requires navigating dense forests, icy plains, and mountainous terrains while tracking prey or avoiding predators. Science today believes Neanderthals likely excelled in processing visual information and understanding their immediate surroundings, which would have made them incredibly skilled at spatial problem solving and tactical hunting. Not to mention their ability to assess terrain and memorize landscapes was probably second to none. However, Neanderthals' focus on spatial cognition may have come at the expense of other cognitive abilities. They essentially robbed Peter to play Paul because their frontal lobes, particularly the prefrontal cortex, which is associated with higher order thinking, decision-making, and planning, were less developed than in Cro-Magnons. This means that while Neanderthals may have been excellent at understanding their environment and making quick, practical decisions in the moment, they might not have been as adept at long-term planning or innovation. On the flip side, the Cro-Magnons had brains that were more evenly distributed in terms of cognitive function, with a more prominent prefrontal cortex. For those who don't know, this part of the brain is crucial for abstract thinking, creativity, and complex problem solving. Essentially, Cro-Magnons likely had a higher capacity for forward thinking, which gave them an evolutionary advantage in adapting to changing environments. This all relied on their enhanced frontal lobes, which allowed them to strategize not only for immediate survival, but also for future challenges. It meant that whether it was developing new tools, planning hunts, or managing social structures within their communities, the Cro-Magnons were ready. From a scientific perspective, the anatomical differences in brain structure between these two species translated into very different approaches to life. Neanderthals were efficient at solving immediate, concrete problems like how to hunt a large animal, how to navigate through tough terrain, and how to survive in harsh, cold environments. Their tools, while effective, were often utilitarian, showing little innovation over tens of thousands of years. For example, they used similar flint tools for generations, making minor improvements but sticking to what worked, which suggests a cognitive style more focused on efficiency and immediate need rather than experimentation. On the other hand, Cro-Magnons demonstrated a remarkable ability to innovate. Their toolkits were more diverse and sophisticated, including items like bone needles, harpoons, and finely crafted blades. This innovation presents to us a different cognitive approach. They were not just solving immediate problems, but also anticipating future needs. For example, Cro-Magnons developed projectile weapons, which allowed them to hunt from a distance and avoid dangerous close encounters with prey. This shows a more strategic, less risk-heavy approach to hunting compared to Neanderthals' close-quarter tactics. Additionally, social cognition is an area where Cro-Magnons most likely outpaced Neanderthals. This is because Cro-Magnons lived in larger, more complex social groups, as evidenced by the rich artistic and symbolic culture they left behind. They were talking about cave paintings, carvings, and even jewelry. These cultural artifacts actually point to higher levels of communication, social cohesion, and possibly more sophisticated language skills. In fact, the ability to convey abstract ideas through art and symbols suggests that Cro-Magnons had a more developed capacity for abstract thinking and symbolic representation, key aspects of advanced social cognition. In contrast, while Neanderthals did show some signs of symbolic behavior, such as burying their dead and using pigment, these practices were less widespread and not as advanced as Cro-Magnons. Their smaller, more isolated groups may have limited the complexity of their social structures and, by extension, the development of language and symbolic thought. In a battle of wits, then, Cro-Magnons would likely have the upper hand due to their more advanced frontal lobes, which allowed for greater creativity, long-term planning, and social interaction. While Neanderthals excelled at spatial reasoning and immediate problem-solving, Cro-Magnons' cognitive flexibility, social intelligence, and ability to innovate gave them the tools not only to survive, but thrive in a rapidly changing world. With that said, the new question is, who was a better hunter? Was it the close combat Hulk Neanderthals, or was it the lean, mean, long-distance hunter, the Cro-Magnon? Stay tuned to find out. Quick pause. If you're enjoying this journey through the prehistoric world, don't forget to like and subscribe. More than 97% of our viewers watch without subscribing, and we'd love to have you join our tribe. It would make all the difference. So, is it done? Great, thanks a ton. When it comes to determining which group were the better hunters, it largely depends on how you define better. See, both species were highly effective hunters, but they had distinct methods that leveraged their respective strengths. Neanderthals, for example, were powerful, stocky, and built for close combat. Their hunting strategy was often centered around ambush tactics, taking advantage of their raw physical strength. With their thick bones and robust musculature, Neanderthals were built to handle close-quarters hunting situations where brute force could be used to bring down prey. Their primary weapons, such as heavy wooden spears, were likely used for thrusting at close range rather than being thrown from a distance. This suggests that Neanderthals preferred to get up close to their prey, whether that meant stalking large herbivores like mammoths or cornering game in tricky terrain. Their environment helped a lot, as it was often harsh and cold and provided natural landscapes like cliffs and dense forests, where ambushing prey would have been an ideal strategy. Their keen spatial awareness and excellent vision helped them plan these surprise attacks effectively, allowing them to take down large, dangerous animals by overpowering them with sheer strength. However, this hands-on approach came with significant risks, as the injuries seen in Neanderthal fossils, such as healed fractures and trauma similar to those seen in modern rodeo riders, suggests that their hunting methods were dangerous. Cro-Magnons, on the other hand, were more agile, taller, and built for endurance rather than brute strength. Their hunting methods relied more on strategy, distance, and planning. Unlike Neanderthals, who preferred to get up close, Cro-Magnons utilized long-range weapons such as the atlatl, a spear thrower that extended their range, allowing them to hunt from a distance. This decreased the risk of injury while increasing the efficiency of their hunts. Cro-Magnons were the innovators of hunting technology. They developed sophisticated tools like finely sharpened blades, harpoons for fishing, and even traps, showing a deeper level of planning and foresight in their hunting strategies. Their reliance on ranged weapons allowed them to hunt larger game effectively, while also expanding their dietary variety. They didn't have to rely on large animals alone, but could also hunt smaller, faster prey, fish, and even birds with less effort. This versatility was a major advantage in adapting to different environments. Moreover, Cro-Magnons hunted in larger social groups, which allowed them to execute coordinated attacks and drive animals into traps or ambushes. This teamwork, along with advanced communication skills, gave them a tactical edge. They didn't just react to their environment, they shaped it, using fire to drive prey or building complex traps and pits. So if we define better in terms of brute strength and close quarters hunting, Neanderthals were the champions. I mean, their powerful builds, ambush tactics, and physical resilience made them incredibly effective at taking down large prey in the cold, harsh environments they thrived in. However, this method was high risk, and their hunting was more of a one-on-one battle with the environment and prey. But if better means more efficient, versatile, and less prone to injury, Cro-Magnons take the crown. Their ranged weapons, team-based strategies, and ability to hunt a wider variety of animals with less physical risk made them superior hunters in terms of long-term survival. Not to mention their innovation allowed them to adapt to changing environments and hunt more efficiently without the same high costs Neanderthals faced. In essence, Neanderthals were like heavyweights going for a knockout punch, while Cro-Magnons were more like skilled tacticians, using speed, strategy, and technology to outsmart their prey. So, depending on your preference, brute force or finesse, each species had its strengths in the hunting arena. So, while you tell us who were better hunters in the comments section, let's talk about who won the survival race in the end. To answer the question simply, ultimately, Cro-Magnons were the ones who won the survival game, while Neanderthals went extinct around 40,000 years ago. However, the reasons behind this outcome involve a mix of factors, like adaptability, social structures, and the environmental changes. Let's break down how this happened. Neanderthals were robust and physically adapted to cold climates, which served them well for hundreds of thousands of years across Europe and Asia. They were built for short-range hunting in harsh glacial conditions, with thick bones and powerful muscles that allowed them to hunt large, tough prey like mammoths. They used close-range tools, including heavy spears, which worked well in their environment. However, this strength was their downfall, as it was tied to their ability to survive in cold, specific ecosystems. As the climate began to warm, their reliance on large prey and cold conditions became a disadvantage. The warming climate brought new landscape and prey that required different hunting strategies, but Neanderthals struggled to adapt. While their bodies were perfect for close combat in cold regions, they weren't well suited for warmer, more diverse environments. At this time, their population was already small, and they lived in scattered, isolated groups, which may have led to genetic bottlenecks and reduced their ability to recover from environmental stresses, disease, or competition. Cro-Magnons, however, were highly adaptable. After coming from Africa, they had already evolved to handle diverse environments and climates. Their ability to adapt gave them a significant edge. So instead of relying on brute strength and close-range tools, Cro-Magnons developed projectile weapons like the atlatl, which allowed them to hunt from a distance and target a wider range of animals. They could quickly innovate new technologies to adjust to their changing environments, which allowed them to access more reliable food sources and thrive in different ecosystems. Not to mention, socially, Cro-Magnons lived in larger, more organized groups. This allowed them to cooperate more effectively in hunting and gathering, sharing knowledge across generations, and spreading useful innovations. Their social networks gave them resilience, helping them survive difficult periods where food might have been scarce or their environment changed. So why did the Cro-Magnons win? Well, while Neanderthals were strong and specialized, they couldn't compete with the Cro-Magnons' flexibility, innovation, and social cooperation. Cro-Magnons thrived by adapting to changing environments and developing better tools and social systems. Though Neanderthals left a genetic mark on modern humans, Cro-Magnons ultimately outlasted them due to their superior adaptability and innovation, making them the long-term survivors in human evolution. It's time for the greatest fight ever known to man. In one corner, we have the Neanderthals, built like tanks with powerful muscles and a knack for close quarters combat. In the other corner, we have you, an innovative Homo sapien, armed with advanced tools and clever strategies. So what happens when brute strength meets cunning intelligence? Who will win? And how is it possible that you might almost certainly lose? Contrary to the image of the bumbling and dumb caveman that we see in shows like the Caveman series and Flintstones, the Neanderthals were actually extremely formidable creatures, so much so that the average human stands very little chance of winning a fight against them. One huge reason for this boils down to their anatomy. To understand why you would lose badly in a fist fight, let's start with their skeletal system. Unlike what movies and cartoons show, Neanderthals had a skeletal structure that set them apart from modern humans in several fascinating ways. This is because they were built for strength and survival in harsh environments, and their bones quite literally reflect that. Unlike us, the Neanderthal skulls were longer and flatter, with a low receding forehead and a pronounced brow ridge. Their brains were slightly larger, on average about 1,500 cubic centimeters or 91 cubic inches, but they were shaped differently. We will dive into how this would affect your fight in a bit. In contrast to their physique, Homo sapiens have rounder skulls with higher foreheads and smaller brow ridges, giving us that modern, intelligent look. While our brains average around 1,300 cubic centimeters, 80 cubic inches, they're more efficiently wired. So brain size alone doesn't make Neanderthals smarter. Moving away from the head, the Neanderthals had stronger jaws with a forward-projecting face, perfect for biting down hard on tough foods, or in this case, on you, as you try to get the caveman in a headlock. The headlock wouldn't even work, as they didn't have much of a chin, which is one of their trademarks. Homo sapiens, on the other hand, are built for headlocks. After all, we have more delicate jaws and a well-defined chin, which helps in speech and chewing softer foods, but sadly not in a fight. To give you an idea, if the two species were chewing through a steak, Neanderthals could probably tear through it like a caveman, pun intended, while Homo sapiens would politely cut it into bite-sized pieces with their tools. Moving down to the torso, Neanderthals had a wider barrel-shaped rib cage, helping them generate more body heat in colder climates. This also gave them a stocky, sturdy look, while Homo sapiens have a narrower, more tapered rib cage, better suited for running long distances and chasing down prey over vast terrains. You can think of Neanderthals as built like a heavy-duty SUV, great for rugged, tough terrain. Homo sapiens, on the other hand, are more like sports cars, sleeker and made for endurance. What do you think would fare better in a collision? Let us know in the comments below. Moving on, when it comes to shoulders and arms, Neanderthals had shoulder blades positioned differently, allowing them to swing their arms with greater force, which was ideal for close-range hunting and for winning fights. Their arms were thicker and more muscular, especially in the forearms, due to years of heavy manual labor and weapon use. In fact, studies show many Neanderthal forearms were bent due to the amount of their muscles exerted on them. On the other hand, Homo sapiens shoulders are more flexible, allowing for better throwing mechanics. We're built for distance and accuracy with projectiles, whether that's a spear or a basketball. But when it comes to throwing hands, you might have to give this one to our ancestors. But not everything is against us, as we actually have a height advantage. See, Neanderthals had shorter, wider pelvises and legs, making them more stable on uneven ground and better suited for conserving body heat. On average, Neanderthals were generally shorter and stockier than modern humans. In fact, the average height for Neanderthal males is estimated to be around 5 feet and 5 inches, or 165 centimeters, while females averaged around 5 feet and 1 inch, or 155 centimeters. This is because their robust build was an adaptation to the cold climates of Ice Age Europe. See, the shorter stature combined with a wider chest and pelvis helped conserve body heat, which, as you know, was crucial. Studies also show that their limbs were also shorter in proportion to their bodies compared to Homo sapiens. You can thank Allen's rule for this advantage. For those who don't know, the Allen rule is an ecological principle that states that endothermic animals in colder climates tend to have shorter limbs to minimize heat loss. Moving on to the legs. The Neanderthals, with their thick leg bones, suggest they had incredible strength and were designed for power over long distances. Homo sapiens, however, have longer, leaner legs and a more streamlined pelvis, making us perfect for endurance running. This was crucial as it gave us an edge in hunting by tiring prey over long distances. In terms of practicality, if you got in a foot race instead of a fight, Neanderthals might dominate in the short sprint like a powerlifter bursting out of the gate. But fret not, because as a Homo sapien, you would slowly catch up and outlast them in a marathon. One thing you should be afraid of though is their hands. This is because they were wider and more robust, with thick fingers that gave Neanderthals a stronger grip for tasks like making stone tools and handling heavy objects. Homo sapiens, however, have more nimble and delicate hands, allowing for more fine motor skills, crucial for detailed tool making, art, and handling smaller objects. In a competition, there is no debate. A Neanderthal would win an arm wrestling match. But in a game of Jenga or painting tiny models, Homo sapiens would dominate. With that said, what about their muscles? How would they fare in a fight? Size and muscle structure. As mentioned before, in terms of size, Neanderthals were shorter but stockier, with males averaging around 5'5" or 165 centimeters, but weighing around 143 pounds or 65 kilograms. Yep, these hominins were built like solid blocks of muscle, but that wasn't all because their bones were denser, making them heavier for their size. Some researchers even suggest their bones were twice the density of ours. With that said, think back to the point of bending their forearm, and you'll begin to see just how insane their strength was. Homo sapiens, on the other hand, are generally taller and leaner, with modern males averaging around 5'9" or 175 centimeters and 165 pounds or 75 kilograms. Our lighter frame allows for faster, more efficient movement, so in terms of athletes, you can imagine Neanderthals as bodybuilders of the human family and Homo sapiens as the distance runners, both physically impressive, just in different ways. The Neanderthals were also incredibly muscular, especially in their upper bodies. As mentioned before, their massive forearms were much larger than those of modern humans, likely developed through activities like spear thrusting when hunting large animals such as mammoths. This would have given them a powerful grip and striking ability, making them formidable in close combat. Their pectoral muscles were a whole new story, as they were about twice the size of those found in modern humans, enhancing their upper body strength. This advantage would have made them more effective in both offense and defense, excelling in grappling and delivering devastating blows. Neanderthals also had thick neck muscles to support their heavier skulls. This not only protected vital areas like the arteries and spine, but also made it much harder for an opponent to apply chokes or secure a headlock in grappling situations. These physical attributes combined made Neanderthals physically dominant, especially in close quarters combat. Perhaps the craziest discovery on the topic of strength is the fact that Neanderthals are genetically stronger than us. But how? Genetics. Well, the answer is quite simple. Neanderthals possessed genetic adaptations that contributed to their impressive strength and robust physiques, setting them apart from Homo sapiens. Studies show that key genes associated with muscle development and physical power, such as the ACTN3 gene, played a significant role in this strength disparity. The ACTN3 gene encodes a protein found in fast twitch muscle fibers, which are crucial for explosive strength and power activities. As you would expect, Neanderthals had a higher frequency of beneficial variants of this gene, leading to greater muscle mass and strength compared to modern humans. Not to mention, variations in the myostatin gene, MSTN, also contributed to Neanderthals' muscularity. Myostatin is a protein that regulates muscle growth, and as such, lower levels or dysfunctional variants can lead to increased muscle mass. Now here's where it gets interesting, as research suggests that Neanderthals may have had adaptations that resulted in lower myostatin activity, promoting greater muscle development. Even their larger skeletal structure, the thicker bones and denser joints, were likely supported by these genetic factors, enabling them to handle more significant physical stress. While Homo sapiens possess genes for strength and endurance, they genetically have a more lean and efficient muscular structure, optimized for endurance rather than raw power. The genetic divergence is simple because of the evolutionary paths each species took, influencing their physical capabilities and survival strategies. So agreed, they are physically overwhelming, but you're smarter, which should help you win the fight, right? Let's see what happens when the fight moves beyond brute force. Stay tuned to find out. Quick pause. If you're enjoying this journey through the prehistoric world, don't forget to like and subscribe. More than 97% of our viewers watch without subscribing, and we'd love to have you join our tribe. It would make all the difference. So, is it done? Great. Thanks a ton. Cognitive advantage. When comparing cognitive adaptations and tool use in a fight between Homo neanderthalensis and Homo sapiens, the battle shifts from raw strength to strategy, creativity, and adaptability. As we know by now, Neanderthals were physically stronger, but lucidly for you, Homo sapiens' cognitive advantages are very crucial. See, modern humans have more developed frontal lobes, which are responsible for complex problem-solving, planning, and innovation. In a fight, this ability would translate to better tactics and decision-making, allowing Homo sapiens to exploit weaknesses in Neanderthal combat strategies. For example, Homo sapiens could employ tactics such as flanking maneuvers, deception, or using the environment to their advantage. Essentially, our brains allow you to think ahead in combat, using tactics and outsmarting your opponents. In contrast, Neanderthals may likely rely more on brute force and instinct. Now let's tackle the elephant in the room. Tools. I'm very sure from the beginning of this video you've already decided that a gun or a blade would easily level the playing field and give you an advantage. And to an extent, you are right. Tool use actually plays a pivotal role in giving Homo sapiens a decisive edge over Neanderthals in any potential conflict, particularly in terms of versatility, innovation, and efficiency. While both species are adept tool users, the quality, variety, and application of Homo sapiens tools far surpassed those of Neanderthals. Neanderthals certainly had tools, including stone axes, scrapers, and thrusting spears, primarily designed for close-range hunting and combat. These tools were effective for their survival needs, particularly in hunting large animals like mammoths. However, Neanderthal tools were often more rudimentary and less diverse. Their spears were typically designed for thrusting, which meant they had to get close to their prey or opponent, which put them in direct danger. In a fight, this reliance on close-quarters weapons, while useful given their strength, ultimately will limit their tactical flexibility. In contrast, Homo sapiens have created more advanced and specialized weapons, including projectile spears, bows and arrows, and slings, which allow them to strike from a distance. For this video, we are not exploring the modern weapons of today, as there would be no fight if they were used. With projectile weapons, Homo sapiens could attack from afar, wearing down or injuring Neanderthals without exposing themselves to their opponent's superior strength in close quarters. Essentially, distance-based weapons make the fight more about strategy than brute force, and Homo sapiens excelled in this type of combat. Taking things deeper, we see Homo sapiens' innovation in toolmaking was driven by their superior cognitive abilities. Because of this, they employed a more refined method of crafting, known as blade technology, which involved making long, thin, sharp-edged blades from stone. These blades were not only sharper and more effective for cutting or piercing, but also allowed for the creation of multi-purpose tools such as knives that could serve various functions in both combat and daily life. Homo sapiens also had an edge in their use of materials. While Neanderthals mostly used stone tools, Homo sapiens incorporated bone, antler, and wood into their toolmaking, allowing for a wider array of tools and weapons. This versatility enabled them to adapt quickly to different environments and challenges, including combat situations, something we will dive into in a bit. In terms of overall effectiveness, Homo sapiens also mastered the art of creating tools in groups, leading to more organized and coordinated weapon manufacturing. This social cooperation not only increased the quantity of weapons they could produce, but also allowed for the sharing of knowledge, further refining their tools over time. In a combat scenario, Neanderthals might rely on brute strength and direct, forceful weapon strikes, but Homo sapiens' ability to innovate and create better tools, particularly those allowing for ranged attacks and more efficient close combat weapons, gives them a significant advantage. Now that's out of the way, let's talk about the effects of where you are fighting. You'll be shocked how much of an impact it will have. Environment. Although you would imagine its effects to be minor, the environment would play a crucial role in shaping the dynamics of a fight between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. Influencing everything from combat tactics to physical endurance, this could be the factor that decides who wins or not. This is because Neanderthals were built for cold, harsh climates and, as such, have the advantage in frigid conditions. Their stocky bodies and shorter limbs help conserve heat, making them more suited for colder regions like Ice Age Europe. In an environment with extreme cold, their robust frames would provide better insulation, allowing them to fight longer and endure harsher climates. Not to mention, dense forests or snowy plains where close-range hunting is necessary would favor Neanderthal strength and close combat skills, giving them an advantage when brute force is key. On the other hand, Homo sapiens are far more adaptable to different environments, so you do have a chance to win. This is because our leaner, taller bodies are designed for endurance and efficiency in a variety of climates, especially in warmer or open landscapes like savannas or grasslands. Here, our longer limbs aid in cooling and increase our mobility, so in open environments where Neanderthal strength is less effective, we could use our ranged weapons to engage from a distance, avoiding the need for direct close quarters combat where Neanderthals thrive. Essentially, the terrain would significantly influence the fight and determine which species gains the upper hand. But here's the new question. Why is this hypothetical fight important? Importance. Although it might seem silly, this hypothetical fight between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals holds significance because it represents the broader story of human evolution, competition, and survival. Exploring this scenario helps us understand how two closely related species, both physically and mentally equipped for survival, might have interacted in the past. While Neanderthals were physically stronger and adapted for cold, harsh environments, Homo sapiens had a unique combination of cognitive abilities, tool use, and social structures that ultimately helped them outlast Neanderthals. Understanding this hypothetical conflict offers insight into how these differences in strength, intelligence, and adaptability may have played a role in the eventual dominance of Homo sapiens. Not to mention, studying Neanderthal strength is important for a few key reasons. First off, it sheds light on the biological diversity among human species and helps us appreciate the physical variations that existed within the genus Homo. As we know, Neanderthals were exceptionally robust, with massive muscles, thick bones, and dense frames, which allowed them to thrive in environments where survival required sheer physical power. By studying their strength, we gain insight into how different evolutionary pressures shaped the physical adaptations necessary for survival in specific climates and conditions. Neanderthal strength also informs us about their daily lives, how they hunted, defended themselves, and interacted with their environment. Their reliance on close-range hunting and their ability to grapple with large prey like mammoths offer a window into the challenges they faced. Finally, understanding Neanderthals' physical power and how it compares to modern humans helps scientists reconstruct how interactions between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals might have unfolded. This includes not only potential conflicts, but also cooperation, interbreeding, and cultural exchanges. Essentially, the study of Neanderthal strength helps us appreciate their role in shaping the broader human story. Crazy as it might seem, you winning a fight against a Neanderthal is completely up to chance. After all, they have everything they need to beat even the most trained fighters of today. And while our weapons have made it easy for us to boast in the face of a species that is not around to defend itself, it is important to look back and see where we began, so we can understand where we are going and why we are who we are. But what do you think? Would you be able to beat a caveman, and who would win in the fight of Mike Tyson versus a Neanderthal? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious.